So all the way back in 1988, Guinness launched their draft at home Nitro can of Guinness with their Widget inside, which was an interesting bit of technological evolution in the world of beer. Fast forward to 2021, we now have the Carlo Brewing Company who have their O'Hara's Irish Stout on Nitro, which they've just released this last week. It's created a big buzz here in Ireland because it has the potential to take quite a big chunk of the market share if O'Hara's get this beer right. Now, there are plenty of Nitro beers out there, and some of them have widgets in and some of them just have nitrogenated beer in them without widgets. I've got a whole bunch here to look at. I'm really excited to get these beers open and see how they look and see the cascade and see how they all taste and what the differences are from brewery to brewery, and just which ones I like and give my views on these brews. Everything from nitro pours to widget technology to nitrogen gases, served, chilled, every single thing that I can think of about these stouts we're going to be taking a closer look at. And as you can see, I've got a red can here of not Nitro Stout, but I thought I'd throw a red one in as well. That's kind of interesting. So everything you needed to know and everything you probably didn't need to know as well. That's going to be coming up next as I delve deeper into the world of Nitro Stout. Back to Views on Brews. I am Brendan, and this is going to be another one of my delve deeper into episodes where I take a closer look at something in the world of beer. This time round it's going to be Nitro Stouts, and I've also got a Nitro Red Ale. We've got cans, we've got bottles, we've got cans with widgets in, cans without widgets in. I'm just interested to see what the difference is between all of these nitrogenated beers are. We've got some that are really historically old and some that are absolutely brand new. I'm interested to work out how these widgets work, so I'm going to be looking into that. If you're new to the channel, do consider subscribing. I'll be making weekly beer reviews and these more in-depth, delve deeper into episodes, which take a bit longer to make, but they're usually really interesting to do with something in the beer world that I'm interested in, and hopefully you get something out of it too. So just briefly before I crack open any of these beers, I'm going to take a quick look into the history of nitrogenated beer, which all started back in the Guinness brewery in 1951, when Michael Ash was employed there to innovate and make the beer more stable and have some of those similar characteristics to cask ale, but poured from draft in kegs. So you may be thinking, what does cask ale have to do with nitro beer? Cask ale is pulled through the pump engine in a draft system in a pub. And what that does is it pulls the beer into a piston in the back of the engine. And on the second pull, the beer is pulled through the swan neck and out into the sprinkler and into the bottom of the pint glass. And depending on the setting of the sprinkler, this can make the beer really silky and smooth to drink. And during the 1950s, forced carbonation from gas cylinders was becoming a big thing. Kegging beer was taking over from cask beer, and Guinness needed to find some kind of a way of carbonating their beer so that it would come out nice and smooth like the cask ales. That's my reading into it. Now, there's a whole bunch of different ideas circulating around it, but Guinness would have been right at the leading edge of innovation and improving their own quality in their products. So Michael Ash is the person that invented the nitrogenation draft system, and the two-part pour thing, which I'm not going to get into here because we're with cans and bottles, was all part of their marketing and to give it the exact amount of carbonation inline in their draft system. So pouring it forwards for 3/4 of the pint, letting it settle, and they're pushing it back, which pulled in slightly less nitrogenation and carbonation through the line. And that's exactly how the draft system got going. But obviously with the success of their draft pour, Guinness wanted to be able to package this product in bottles and cans so that people could take it away and have it in their houses. So obviously Guinness had to go back to the drawing board and now invent the same kind of nitrogenation technology for their cans, and that's where the Widget comes in. A man in Birmingham called John Lunn had invented Widget technology, and this is the Widget here from a can of Murphy's. And in 1987 Guinness had been working on their Widget technology with all kinds of different failed attempts, over 100 different ones apparently, but they did manage in 1988 to launch their first draft can with the floating Widget. There was a whole bunch of other Widgets that failed, and usually because if the beer wasn't refrigerated long enough, it meant that as soon as someone popped the ring on the beer, that it was bursting out with foam and over-carbonated. So the one that really has set the world away is this one here. There are multiple different versions. This one is going to be slightly different to the Guinness one, but John Lunn is responsible for creating widgets for Heineken as well, so that's how this Murphy's one came about, and he also created one for Boddington's for Whitbread as well. So the Widget has revolutionized the way we are able to package beers for sale and drinking at home. There was even like a torpedo one for bottles, but this one failed and they just gave up in the end, and they've canned all of their draft beer since. So what that did is it enabled Guinness to have a product that was precisely the same as those original cask ales with their hand-pulled pump engine style creamy smooth texture, and that's how we've come to be where we are today, roughly. And I suppose the last thing I should say about these Widgets is it's probably a very, very costly exercise for a brewery to introduce Widgets into their beer canning line, because you're using liquid nitrogen and it's a whole new technology that has to be worked on. So for the new modern craft beer brewers to get in on this, you're likely to need a brewery that has a decent amount of capital finance, a lot of money for research and development into how they can implement this into their beers. So that is why the O'Hara's Nitro Stout is quite a big deal over here in Ireland. And it's going to be interesting over the next 12 to 24 months to see how that works out. If it does, I'm sure they'll probably look into making their red nitro, because they've done red nitro on draft. They may decide to can that one as well if it's successful. But it can all be traced back to what Guinness did in terms of improving the quality and the consistency of their packaged products and their draft stout on nitro. So with that being said, I think it's time we crack open some of these beers. Okay, so that's the first beer that I've poured. I'm not sure that I pour it wrong, but I didn't see much of that cascading going on down the outside. I thought as well that I'd really polished this glass very clean, but apparently there are some bubbles hanging onto the side. Didn't see much in the way of nitro, but it does look really creamy on top. Slightly off-white, more sort of tan beigey colour. I'm going to have a look now, see what it says on the can ever so quickly. It should be pointed out this is going to be the lowest ABV at 4% on the dot. We've got water malted barley. Barley contains hop extracts and hops, and it also includes nitrogen as one of the ingredients, which is bizarre. Yeah, so that's Murphy's Draft Irish Stout. It says served chilled. It has been in the fridge for 24 hours and is very cold to the touch. Anyway, cheers, sláinte. I'm going to give this one a taste test now and see what it's like. There's a nice roasty acidity, a bit of a tang going on. Not much in the way of carbonation, but there is a bit of that creaminess coming through with the head. As I suspected, the beer is a toucher on the thin side because underneath all of this masses of nitrogenated bubbly creaminess is a very undercarbonated beer, which is exactly what you'd expect from a nitro beer, because what would have normally been 100% carbonation bubbles is now 75% nitrogen bubbles, which are very insoluble, and they come out of solution to make this cream, leaving you with only 25% of what you would normally get in terms of carbonation in a beer. So that's why nitrogenated beer is a lot less fizzier. Having said that, it's a nice, easy, sessionable pint. Let's have another go. There's just a light sort of cereal, maybe a bit of chocolatey, maybe a touch of dark malt on the nose, kind of like, you know, bordering on like roasty, but just very faint. A little bit cereal-like is the way I would put it. Anyway, yeah, very, very weak in terms of the aroma, but that's totally fine. And just brings you back to sitting in an Irish pub. I really want to hear some Irish music right now. I know that might sound cliche, but I am missing going in an Irish pub so much. It does taste nice and roasty, I will say. There is kind of like there's actually a nice malty character to it, but it's weak. It is 4%, so it's kind of low, and that nitrogen just subdues that flavour profile, and sort of the lack of carbonation means that all of those flavors that would be coming out of solution as I put the beer into my mouth and force that carbonation out, the perception of all the flavor is just dulled down because a lot of that carbonation just isn't present. And instead what I get in place of it is the mouthfeel from the creaminess on the top of the head. But still kind of nice, kind of enjoyable, and kind of like nostalgic as well. This one is brewed down in this is owned by Heineken, and it's brewed down in Cork in Ladyswell Brewery, which I think they've renamed the Heineken brewery down there, which is, I think you should keep it Ladyswell Brewery. Not really sure there because I haven't really looked into it too much, but it is a Heineken product. This also has a widget in the bottom, which is this precise widget, because I already opened one of these up. And yeah, I kind of like that. That's not bad at all. I think another thing that these are really good for, I bought this in a 6-pack and it was €11. I think this would be really, really good for using in stews. So if you buy a 6-pack of it, it's good for drinking. It's also good for cooking with as well. I'm a chef, so I'm always thinking about these sort of roasty flavors. That sort of nice roasty, slightly sweet element to it go well with nice roast beef casserole, maybe a nice pie crust on the top, and a pint of Murphy's to wash it down. Why not? But that's Murphy's, and look, it is what it is. It's kind of very plain, muted, dulled down, dialed back flavors, but there is a lingering gentle roastiness. It's kind of nice, I have to say. 4% as well. Not going to do you any harm. It's in a 500ml can as well. Obviously 568 is an imperial pint, so it's not quite a pint, but you do get it in one of these Guinness glasses and it works very well in here. Although I don't understand, even though I really took care to clean this glass, why it's clinging on to the edges of the glass. I will say the cream on the top is becoming less and less as I drink it, which I don't normally get on a Guinness. And there is kind of like a gentle roasty bite to this as well, which I really like. It almost feels like it's cutting through with the amount of roast malt that they've got in here. You know, dry Irish Stout is going to be roughly something along the lines of 80% pale malt, 10% unroasted malted, unmalted roasted barley, and 10% of flaked barley, which is probably unmalted as well. So this kind of a beer is always going to be low ABV, but still have the perception of a depth of flavour because you've got that creamy head on it. But it's a small creamy head, and it's thin. It's not like a Guinness head, which is really thick. I can take a bit off the top of it in fairness, but yeah, that's my view on this brew. Not too bad at all. I'd happily sit in an Irish pub right now and drink a pint of Murphy's, no problem at all. And it's established in 1856, but of course Heineken have taken over the brewery and the brand, and it's theirs now. Very easy to drink this beer, very, very easy. Consume this. This is a proper pintable pint. That's it, that's Murphy's. On to the next one. Oh, that's good. That's really nice. So it's really interesting. Whereas the Murphy's had that sort of roasty bite to it, this one is a little bit more tangy, and I feel it's going to be more along the lines of what I think I remember Guinness being like. I have not had it for quite a while. And unlike the Murphy's can, this one actually tells you the best way to appreciate the smooth taste and creamy head of the Beamish Stout. Serve chilled and pour in one smooth action. That's exactly what I did, and I definitely got a much better head off of this one, and it feels creamier when I'm drinking the beer through the foam on the top. Of course, all that foam on the top is the less soluble nitrogenous bubbles of gas, as opposed to that prickly carbonation you get from carbon dioxide. It mutes those flavors, it dulls them down. On the nose, I'm getting that basic cereal, that slightly malted, slightly wheaty sort of, I know there's no wheat in it, but it does remind you of shredded wheat, sort of cereal box sort of stuff. Just slightly malted, smooth, with a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of roast going on in there. It is very pleasing to the nose, I have to say, and that foam on top is absolutely fantastic. It does look like it's going to stay there throughout the whole pint, whereas the Murphy's one was a little less stable, but I kind of enjoyed the flavour of the Murphy's one. Let's give it another go. What I find myself doing with these Irish Stout type beers is I'm taking a big mouthful of it, whereas with craft beer I'm kind of taking sips and smaller mouthfuls. Here I've just taken, you know, in 2 sips I've already got rid of, like, you know, 1/5 of the pint, which is, you know, it's 4.3%, very pintable, very drinkable, but that muted flavour allows you to almost gulp it down. Fantastic, it really is really nice. But definitely more tangy, less roasty. That is the difference. You know, of the things that I was trying to find out when I taste these beers is, do I taste a difference in them? And I really taste a big difference. Now, I'm not saying I'd be able to taste the difference in a blind test, but that feels more sweet, more tangy, and the Murphy's in comparison feels more roasty and a little bit more watery because it's 0.3% smaller, and it had less of a creamy head than the Beamish one. I think you get it tough to tell them apart in a blind taste test, but at the same time, yeah, there is a difference, and this one is clinging to the side, where the Murphy's on both pints that I poured out, both of them weren't clinging to the side. Like, this one's gonna make rings if I drink it properly. Also, yeah, perhaps one of the biggest differences between Beamish and Murphy's, less bitter. There's less of a perception of that bite of bitterness. And I wonder, is it the amount of nitrogenation? Like, I know you get 75% nitrogenous gases and 25% carbon dioxide coming out of the widget and in suspension already from the beer as it's leaving the fermenter to be packaged into the cans. But for me, that really did feel like much more roastier in the Murphy's and much more tangier and mellow in the Beamish. Yeah, so definitely a difference there. Both produced from Heineken, both in and around the 4%, 4.0 and 4.3. I don't sort of, you know, I don't think they should be compared in which one is the best, but which one I would prefer is neither. I would prefer to have one of each, perhaps, because they both give different things. However, the Murphy's one, that heavy bitterness, that strong roasty bitterness, and less smooth on the tongue, I think I'd probably end up going with Beamish over it fractionally. But really, we're you know, it's not a head-to-head. But yeah, very enjoyable. So that's Beamish, and there we go. 3 sips, half a pint.